We get started. I'm really excited to have you all here tonight. Thank you for coming. Thank you for taking time out of your day. And I really appreciate all of the work that each of you are putting into your chapters to make sure that they're ready and set for the next year. So I am joined tonight by a couple of pretty much our biggest support here. So first of all, I want to give a shout out to Mackenzie Locka. She is staff at the Heritage Center for AK Psi. She is in education, so I appreciate you being here tonight. I appreciate you helping me out with anything that I might miss. Andrea, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. As Jake mentioned, thank you for being here this evening. One of the things that we are doing is we're all learning through this process, and we're here to help each other. We're all learning, and we're all growing through this. I am currently serving as the Area 3 Vice President. I have served, I've been a brother since 1991. I just calculated that. That's 29 years. I have been in various volunteer roles. And I've served on a number of committees. I've served as speaker, judge. I was on the foundation board for a number of years. I did make history in 2007 when I was elected the first female president of the fraternity. So I do have a lot of experience in the fraternity, and I'm always excited to be able to pay it forward. So I'm very excited about being able to join Jake this evening.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Andrea. I'm excited to have you here too. I'm excited to have your input as we go through all of this. A little bit about myself. My name is Jacob Dries. I pledged in the fall of 2011 at the University of Toledo. So that's the Gamma Eta chapter. I've been a brother for 8, 9, coming on 10 years soon. So exciting. So I have been in various roles such as chapter advisor, section director, and I am now the regional director for the Valley Crossroads, which is pretty much all of Ohio except for one chapter, and all of Indiana except for one chapter. So I don't get all of a state, but I get most of a state, so that's pretty fun. I was a president in my chapter. I was a master of rituals, so I'm excited to kind of bring my own experiences to the table as well. And I would also invite each of you to post in the chat, give us a little blurb about where you're from, what interested you in membership and recruitment tonight, whether you're an officer or whether you just want to know a little bit more about how to figure out this virtual thing. So please post in the chat, and I'm happy to have you here. So moving on, let's talk about looking at the vice president of membership role and membership in general. It really starts off with recruitment. So recruitment is the lifeblood of your chapter. You don't recruit, your brothers end up graduating, and then you get smaller, and then we're nothing. So recruitment is so important to bring in new people, to show them how great we are as AK Psi, show them really just what membership is, and benefit other people like how you were benefited. Now, recruitment isn't just on one person. It isn't just on your recruitment chair or your vice president of membership. Recruitment is a group effort. So it is up to your entire chapter to be able to recruit and make sure that you're recruiting. If even one person kind of falls behind with that, we lose out. So make sure you buy it in, like make sure everyone has that buy-in. Talk to them about the whys, talk to them about what the benefits are, and let's get it together. When you're thinking about recruitment, think about what's worked in the past. It doesn't make sense to reinvent the wheel every single semester. You can throw your own flair onto it. I know we love to make our own little themes. So throw your flair on it, but think about what's worked. So if professional speakers work, if you like inviting in professional speakers for your pledge events, if you like to have a little brotherhood or a service event, if those draw crowds, think about how you can do those again, and think about how you can do those in a virtual format. So professional speakers, we're doing it right now. Right here on Zoom, you can invite potential new members for a professional speaking event, or even brotherhoods. I know we've played Jackbox through Zoom before. You have a bunch of different opportunities available to you. Recruitment's 365 days a year. So even right now, you have people who are moving into res halls. If they're not, they will be moving in soon possibly, or they might be doing a remote semester. Either way, there are still opportunities to meet new people. So when you're starting out your classes, if you have online classes, looking at your discussion boards and introducing yourself and saying you're a part of AKSI, recruitment doesn't just have to be at the start of the semester. It can be throughout the whole semester. If you meet someone in the middle of the semester that you think would be a great brother, start to build that have that conversation, build that relationship now. And then ask your chapter for ideas. Really, it's a collective effort. Like I said, recruitment's a group effort. So the more ideas that you can have and bring to the table, the better off you're going to be. Really, when it comes down to it, the more you do to put yourself out there in these different ways, the better off you're going to be. There are a lot of first-year students who are moving in, or they're ready for their first semester of college. They may be taking an online semester. They may be moving in a month later. But regardless, they still want to find that connection to the university. Yes. You can be that connection. It just starts with recruitment. Anything you want to add, Andrea?
No, Jake, almost everything that you've said, I've had in my notes. So I am huge in regard to quotes. One of the things I strongly believe in is that if we are not growing, we're dying. And as Jake mentioned before, if you're not growing and increasing your numbers in any way, every semester that passes by, you're losing more members. Also, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. The truth is, now is the time to think outside the box, be creative, use technology. And the other thing is that Jake mentioned is the quality of life is really determined by the relationships. It's all about relationships. When you meet someone in one of your classrooms and you hit it off and you connect, you can take that conversation offline. People join organizations and clubs where they like people and they trust people. When I look back at why I pledged Alpha Kappa Psi myself, it was because I was on the Student Government Association, and 3 of the fellow legislators were on the SGA, and they invited me to a meeting. I didn't even know what rushing was at the time, and they invited me to the first pledge class, and I got reeled in that way. Best decision, actually, when I look at my past 30 years of being involved. But it really comes down to, if there's a will, there is definitely a way, and we are here to support you. Any of us would be interested to coming to your meetings, serving on a panel, hopping on, giving 5-10 minutes of our time. We are here when we're all learning and growing at the same time. So excellent, Jake.
Thanks, Andrea. So you've come up with these different recruitment strategies. You absolutely killed it. You've got a pledge class. Now it's time for pledge education. So what's important before you even get started with pledge education is to review it. You would be surprised how many things you forget when you're not looking at it every day. You may remember it very clearly from your pledge program as one thing, but it's really important to look it over again. Read through the facilitator guide. Think about what program length you want. So how long do you want the pledge program to be? It doesn't have to be the same every year. Just because you did it one way doesn't mean it still works. So think about the program length. Think about the electives. What kind of things are going to benefit your members or your pledges? And really, that can be something that you can solicit ideas from the members themselves. Ask them, what kinds of things would you like to see in your bridge program? Because at the end of the day, you need the buy-in from your members as much as you need it from your pledges, right? After that, you're going to complete your program syllabus. So that's going to be really important. So completing the program syllabus through Smarter Select. And then once that's completed, it's going to be reviewed by our educational resource coordinators. So coral, or amber. So they'll review it, send you any feedback, and make sure that you're good to go. Then after that, look at the educational modules. So make sure you take a look at those and think about how you're going to facilitate them. So being able to talk things through with your pledge class and explain it to them. It's one thing to go through it the first time, you're gonna stumble, but you wanna give them that really important experience. You wanna give them that pledging experience. So make sure you practice it ahead of time. On Chapter Spot, so what's going to be really important here with Chapter Spot is that you have people who are listed as the 7 officers. So if you are in that role of VP membership, make sure you have the VP membership role on Chapter Spot. Make sure everyone else has those roles, because that's how you have access to be able to do some of the administrative things. So if you don't have these people declared in these roles, then you're missing out on information, because the Heritage Center and the AKSI staff aren't sending emails to just every single member. That doesn't make sense. They're sending targeted information, targeted emails. So make sure that you have the VP membership role, so that way you're receiving the VP membership information, or whatever your role may be, make sure you have that. You can easily log into My AKSI Community and do it there. We now just got that cool new app. Or you can just type in chapterspot.com, log in that way. If you don't remember the email that you signed up with, you can ask your resource coordinators, they'll help you. Or you can just kind of stumble around, figure it out, ask someone else who may be able to get in, they'll be able to tell you. So then one of my favorite things here, because I'm a big data guy, is reporting your pledges and initiates. And really, this is starting from the beginning right here. So what's really cool about Chapter Spot is that you're able to create a campaign. So by creating a campaign, this is just saying the recruitment cycle is starting. We're going to start planning and looking for our potential new members, our pledges. So within this campaign, you can edit it, you can make all these different changes. What's going to be super important are these few things. That you can create a form that if you're at an event or if you're doing an event, the pledges can fill out. That's super easy way to collect their information. Or if you collect it your own way through an Excel spreadsheet, you can upload prospects. So I would really encourage you, if you meet someone who's a potential brother or potential prospect for pledging, upload them. Because even if you decide not to give them a bid this semester, or they decide not to accept a bid this semester, they are still in this campaign. And when it comes time for a new campaign in the spring, you can start that new campaign and you're gonna be like, hey, I already have a list that these are warm contacts. They've already known what AKSI is all about a little bit. Let's reach out to them again. So that's gonna be super important. But for those that you do vote on and you decide to bring into pledging, you can move those prospects to be inducted. A lot of people get confused about this. To be inducted just means that they were extended a bid and they're going to go through the induction ceremony. Induction is the first ceremony. Induction and initiation are different. So once you move them to be inducted, then afterwards, once they're inducted, they can be reported as a pledge. And that is one of my favorite parts, is reporting pledges. Super important, because the sooner you report your pledges, the sooner you are sent the fee from the Heritage Center. You're also sent all the materials that you need for the pledging program. It also helps us to know who's in your pledging program. It's just good record keeping. That way, if something were to ever happen, we have accurate notes of what your kind of pledge process looks like. We have accurate notes of who is a pledge at the time. We have better information there. On the other side of being a VP of membership is understanding a bit more about the leave of absence and then suspensions. So leave of absence are good, suspensions not so good. Leave of absences, there are a bunch of different options available, from medical, financial, or like extreme hardship, study abroad, co-op, military service. Take a look at those and make sure you understand how those ones work. Now, let's also talk about the bad side. So when it comes to suspensions, understanding the two different kinds of suspensions. So there's suspension for non-attendance. So to be suspended for non-attendance, you need to, like, a brother needs to have been unexcused for 3 absences per semester or 2 per quarter. So unexcused absences, that could be any type of event that was mandatory for brothers to be at and they did not submit an excuse to who records attendance. So after that, it's recommended that you come up with reinstatement terms. It's actually mandatory that you come up with reinstatement terms, but here are some recommended ones: possible community service, meeting with the executive board, presenting to the chapter, creating personal goals. So reinstatement terms are important, and they have to be submitted to the Heritage Center, because without these terms, it's hard to say what if 2 or 3 semesters from now they come back, the exec board is now long gone. How are they going to know what this brother needs to do to become an in good standing brother again? You're not allowed to do fines or fees though. So you can't do any fines or fees, and it should not include any mandatory attendance at closed chapter events. One of the things with being suspended is you lose your right to be considered an in good standing brother. So they're technically not allowed at rituals, they're not allowed at meetings, things that are closed to the chapter. It should also not include a chapter or e-board vote. That's what the idea of reinstatement terms are for. Once they meet the reinstatement terms, they are good to go. They're a brother in good standing. It's a clean slate. When it comes for financial, to be suspended, they have to be 30 days past due. And then the reinstatement terms are really simple. They have to pay the amount they owe. You don't have any extra finance charges or fees included with that. They just have to pay what they owe. And then after that, it's an automatic reinstatement. I feel like we're bouncing around a little bit looking at this PowerPoint now, but it's cool, we're good. So let's talk about kind of the educational model for the Bridge to Brotherhood. So from induction to initiation, I want you to kind of think about it like it were an internship. So thinking about it in the sense that the brothers are going to induction, they're having their first interview, they're maybe doing a practice interview, and then that induction is the start of their internship. So from module 1, which is building relationships, you'd be going through meeting the people in your department, you'd be connecting with them, you'd be learning a little bit more about how the company works, like when you're jumping into exploring values, you're learning what the company is all about. And then chapter operations, you kind of get an understanding of the mechanics behind it. So you're learning a bit more about the nitty-gritty, the policies, the procedures that come with the chapter. And then sometimes in an interview, you're throwing around like some practice interviews as well. So module 4, that's all about interviewing. So being able to practice interviewing and getting ready for the midterm interview. After the midterm interview, you learn about handling feedback. So trying to figure out how to experience feedback and not take it to heart. That's something that everyone always does. Is a lot of people will take feedback to heart and they'll think of it as a bad thing, but you should love feedback. You should love the opportunity to grow because there are parts of you that you don't think about or see, but other people do. So being able to handle feedback is going to help you grow as a professional and personally. We look at emotional intelligence, so being able to really understand and walk a mile in someone else's shoes, being able to empathize with them. And then with Court of Honor, just kind of like another part of an internship is you sometimes have a presentation of maybe you did a long-term project throughout your internship, or maybe they ask you to present on a different thing. That's your Court of Honor project. And then initiation, it's like getting that full-time offer. So you've gone through all of this work, you've decided like, yes, 100% AK Psi, here's the final offer, like you are a brother. Moving into the program syllabus. So the program syllabus, like I mentioned before, is required of all chapters to report the pledge program and electives. So why do we do this? Well, how it happened before was that a lot of chapters really took pledging into their own hands. They created their own pledge programs. What one chapter did may have varied differently from another chapter. So there's one chapter that assigns painting fences, and then there's another chapter that assigns 150 interviews, or you're all over the place. So the goal with the Bridge to Brotherhood was really kind of trying to rein it in and really come back to what our central values are, looking at the things that unite us all as different chapters, but we're still one brotherhood. And another thing is it's safer. So the program syllabus is required to be reported because when we receive that syllabus and we get that kind of final check off for you, we look through, we give it feedback, you give us that final, that's giving us the opportunity to have a physical piece of evidence that if some pledge were to come back and argue that there is some sort of hazing incident, and we go through and we see that you did everything by the book as we talked about in the syllabus, that gives your chapter more weight and it gives you more protection. Our goal is to protect you at the end of the day and make sure that you stay a chapter. So that's why you have kind of these extra steps. You can see here that for semester and quarter schools that there's a May 15th, November 15th, and then February 15th deadlines. I'd suggest you work on those ahead of time. Make sure that as you're going through really the syllabus for the fall, that you're making notes and thinking of things that you might want to change, things that you liked for the spring. And then initiation requirements. I just cleaned this up a little bit. It looked a little messy before, but we're good now. So really at the end of the day, here are the things you need to do to get initiated. Here are the things that your pledges need. They need to do the educational modules. They need to do a personal development plan, thinking about where they are at point A, how they get to point B. Creating a resume, it's commonplace. Like you're gonna help them make the best resume ever. They're gonna stick out in job interviews and internships. Conducting an informational interview. So having them go out, interview someone with their major or where they're interested in, trying to get more information about what they want to do. Do they want to be a marketing major? So having these different things. An informational interview is huge. So completing the midterm interview, mid-court, as it was known before, making sure that they go through, they have that kind of middle point where they can do a check-in and see what their progress was from point A, which was induction, to point B, which is midterm interview, and point C, which is your final interview at Court of Honor. Completing all chapter added electives. So you as a chapter, you have the opportunity to come up with electives that will benefit your pledges, that make it more your own program. So having them complete all those chapter electives, delivering a Court of Honor presentation. So the presentation on their pledging program that they do at Court of Honor, passing the fraternal exam with at least a 76%. Contrary to popular belief, they can retake this. So if they don't get a 76 the first time, it is fine. They do have second, third, whatever they need to do to get that 76. It is an open note, so should be okay, should be fine. And then lastly is reciting the anthem and creed to a member of the Pledge Education Committee. So being able to share that they know the creed, they know the anthem, bam, you're good to go. You're initiated. Congratulations. There are some times where pledges don't perform up to expectations. That isn't grounds for removal right away. Remember when I talked a little bit back there about the hazing allegations? So we don't want to make that happen just because a pledge doesn't perform to where they're supposed to be. So what we have is we have a consistent template to address performance or behavioral gaps. We created this template with the use or kind of help from SHRM, which is the Society for Human Resource Management. So we used kind of what they had in order to create this. So you know it's legit. So what's really important is that you follow the certain guidelines, which you find in the facilitator guide for creating these plans. Make the improvement plan something that the pledge is able to do. Think about SMART goals. So make sure that it's not outlandish or something that you know they're not going to achieve. And then have it reviewed by your chapter advisor or section director, regional director, resource coordinator, whoever you need to have it reviewed by before you administer it. And then if they have any feedback, make sure you take that into account. And then make sure you keep that on file with us and with yourselves. Again, you want to make sure that you keep yourself covered. So if you have that in writing and they don't follow through with it, that's when you can take action. But before that, if you decide to just drop a pledge like that without giving them the chance to improve themselves, the Heritage Center isn't as able to support you because you didn't have the documentation. You have so many resources available to you. They're all online. They're all at your fingertips. Use the facilitator guide. It literally goes through step by step every single thing that you need to think about when it comes to creating a quality pledge program. Use the program syllabus. So that's a way that you can give to the pledges saying, hey, here's an outline of everything that you need to do. We've created module PowerPoints for you. There's a guide to a virtual bridge to brotherhood. So we've gone through, we've done all the dirty work for you to help start making you think of ideas or different ways to go virtual. And then make sure your pledges have the resources they need too. So there's a Bridge to Brotherhood learning plan, has study guides, practice quiz links, interview guidelines. It has everything that they're going to need to be successful. You're not going into a class without all the resources that you need, so give them those same types of things. Mackenzie, am I missing anything in this one?
Nope, pretty much covered it. So as Steve mentioned in the opening and Jacob just mentioned, we did create virtual guides for you guys specifically for these upcoming terms as you're trying to go virtual. So I'll put the links in the group chat as well, but they're accessed in the knowledge base in the community. Just search for virtual and you'll come up with the virtual guide to recruitment, which will give you the ideas for how to find people virtually, how to run your virtual process, how to do your virtual deliberations, as well as the virtual Bridge to Brotherhood, which includes everything from how to run the educational modules virtually, breaking it down to how to do those different activities, and suggestions for how to do the different electives in a virtual environment. So highly, highly recommend looking at those before you start your process. And it's not released yet, but we're hopefully going to have it done by the end of the month before you guys are starting back in your processes. But we will be having a learning plan for the VPMs, specifically about bridge training, that goes through everything we've talked about tonight and gives you a little bit more detail as well. So look out for that in the next couple of weeks.
All right, so I understand wholeheartedly that I am a talker. I like to talk, it's my thing. But this is the time for you to talk now. And this is the time for us to really learn from each other. So I may not have all the answers. Andrea Mackenzie may not have all the answers. But together we can come up with something solid for us all to work through and get an idea of how we can survive this virtual climate.
I do
Go ahead.
just want to make a point in regard to the program resources. some people on this call know that last year I had lost my job and I was unemployed for a number of months. And then February 11th, I had an interview that went very well. I was offered a position on March 4th. I had a start date of March 26th. I did not start that day. I actually started just a few days later on March 30th, I started. And what was interesting about the question that I got from my boss and from HR wasn't, they didn't ask me if I can do the job. They asked me if I needed anything to be able to do my job. So everything that I needed, I did have. And in this case, what I'm asking you guys is not the question of, can you recruit? It's what do you need from our perspective to be able to do this? The resources are available. The people are here to help you. There are so many things you can do with technology. I know I've said this before, that now is a great opportunity to embrace technology. I don't think I've seen, what's funny is I feel closer to Jake and I feel closer to Coral than ever before. We do a lot more, talking and seeing each other than we have in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So if you embrace this and treat it as an opportunity, there's only two things that you can control. One is your attitude and the other one is your effort. And that's what we're asking you, is to put your effort forth.
All right.
Okay, as you guys are the experts, that you guys will be actually going through the virtual recruitment and pledging. As you use those resources, if you have feedback, if you find other things that actually do work, send them to us so we can share it with everybody else.
Okay, so at this point, it looks like I did get one question during this time. But then I want to leave it to you. I want you to ask questions. I want you to learn from each other and talk to each other. So if you hear a question and you're like, I think I know the answer to that, feel free to bring it up, because every chapter does things differently and we only learn best from each other. So it looks like the question was, I'm understanding we are doing virtual programs and they will be required, correct? So yes, we are operating all in the virtual landscape this year. The goal is to keep everything virtual. It's safer that way. I believe in the recruitment for some of the minimum standards, the goal is to do either a virtual or hybrid recruitment. I would really encourage virtual. You never know when you're going to need these skills to be able to say that you created this virtual recruitment for X number of pledges, brothers, people in general. That's going to be huge on a resume.
I will tell you that I am still in contact with a lot of job seekers from last year and all the networking groups that I joined. One of the job requirements that you will see is if you can 100% be productive and efficient in a remote environment. So it is a job skill.
So feel free to post questions in the chat. You can unmute yourself, speak them. I want to hear from you. Was there
Hey,
anything?
Jacob, Steph Potter here. Can you hear me okay?
Hey, Steph. Yeah, I can hear.
One of the things that brother here just wanted to share with everybody, one of the things that's really important this year with us going virtual is exactly as Jacob and Andrea alluded to, is that this is something that you can talk about when you get into an interview about how you took your chapter virtual and all the unique things that you guys did to that. Because not only does that show flexibility, but like Andrea said, the availability and the ability to work from home successfully, and being able to run a really great virtual recruitment, virtual fundraising, maybe virtual pledge class, whatever it is, I feel like is really something that you can speak to. So even though you have a great position in the fraternity, and you can talk about all the things you did, this is really, making that pivot. And that's what a lot of employers are looking for, as well as the kind of communications and all of the things that are backing up what you're going to be doing this semester. So just keep that in mind.
Stephanie, great point. Stephanie, great point to add. The other thing is it shows that you're resilient. Stephanie mentioned flexibility and adaptability, and it shows that you're resilient.
Another thing, if you don't have questions, I would encourage you to maybe throw in the chat what is a recruitment event that you usually do as a chapter, and how are you thinking about making that virtual? So utilizing Zoom, utilizing Google Meets, what are you doing to make a recruitment event virtual or a pledge event, whatever you want to do?
So I'm sure many of you know this. I mean, if you've been using Zoom, but I learned this today. I was at a networking event that had 80 people, and what they wanted to do was give the opportunity for people to meet others kind of randomly. So they used the shuffling option. It did not work very well because it was the first time they used it, and we kept getting shuffled, but we were put in the same room over and over again. I'm sure we'll master that, and the next time the meeting will be different. But there are so many different things that you can utilize. So, and these tools are becoming a lot more useful, and they're changing, and so it's a tool to learn.
All right, Meta, do you have a question? You had your hand raised.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So my name is Meta. I'm the VP of Pledge from the Gamma Nu chapter at Babson College. And my question is, because my school is kind of doing this hybrid format where we've got students at home as well as students on campus, it's really pertaining about how to provide an equal platform for students, like pledges who might be completely virtual sitting at their own home, to be able to have some of the similar experiences with brothers that, say, on-campus students would have, just because these conversations with brothers and interactions would happen more naturally. And just really looking for some tips there, because it really makes me nervous about whether or not the virtual students will be able to have a similar experience, and what more my committee would need to do to be able to facilitate that.
Jake, you got an idea?
Yeah, I would think that the first thing that comes to my mind is making sure that from the membership side that you're setting that expectation, like making sure that everyone is feeling engaged, because I can understand completely that is a concern, that you want to make sure that if there's a pledge that's sitting at home, that they can feel just as engaged. And it really comes with that first thing of making sure that they're always in the mind. Like, you've got this computer off to the left of you right now. Make sure you keep looking at it and you're engaging with the person that's on the other side of the screen.
Can I add?
Yeah.
So the one thing that I found is a lot of people find these big rooms very intimidating. So my advice is to pair them up with someone in your active membership, and take some side conversations, one-on-one, and then have smaller groups. Bring them in kind of gradually, because it can be intimidating. Not everyone wants to speak if there's, a group of 20 to 40 people on the screen. And you can have games, and you can have, side notes. Your pledge classes, you don't have to have 40 in a pledge class. You can split it up where you have 20 and 20 or 10, 10, 10. There's a lot of flexibility in doing these things. So don't think that there's a black or white way to do things. There is so many things that you can do. And we're open to trying new things, and treat the fall as that, that practice platform. And, if you fail, you'll learn from that, and you move forward, and you modify it and do other things in the spring, but at least you'll be somewhat more prepared.
And one of the big things that we recommend specifically is, if you do have those people working virtually and some people on campus, make sure you're staying in connection with those virtual people even more than you think you would normally. So whether it's you as the VPM or using like the Big Brothers, making sure you have more touch points just to ask them, say, hey, are you feeling connected? If they are, great, it's working. If they're not, maybe they have some suggestions that you might be able to implement. So talking to them and getting their feedback.
One of the things I had as a job seeker is I had a job search buddy, and that person kept me accountable for the things that I needed to do. Finding a new job is basically a full-time job. And so what you can do in regard to these new pledges is you can have daily doses of AKSI, or you could have weekly touch points or bi-weekly touch points. It's a matter of figuring out what that person needs. Some people are going to be engaged immediately. Other people, they're going to need a little more assistance, like Mackenzie mentioned. They're going to need additional touch points. Maybe, you know, something every morning or something in the evening just to touch base and, hey, how are you doing? No, what are you learning? What are you having, you know, what are you struggling with? And the best thing that you can do in a lot of cases is just listen. I know some people think that in order to have a really good conversation with someone that you have to be speaking all the time. But the truth is, sometimes it's better to just listen to someone. You may not be able to solve their issues, but at least you can show that you care.
One thing I mentioned at the beginning was that you're bringing in, like, each of these universities, they're bringing in first-year students who will be remote their first semester, and all they're looking for is a connection to campus. So think of ways that you can connect them with more people. Think of maybe pairing them up with a different brother every week. And it's even the small things, like if that brother does a FaceTime and you're walking through campus and they're able to just take in the sights and sounds of campus. That one interaction is going to give them so much more because it's taking the time and showing that you care and showing that they have a home when they get there, that this will be their home.
Utilize mail. If you know where they are, let's say you're planning a fun evening, send a bag of popcorn. You know, be creative, do things outside the box. I know that people do like to get cards in the mail.
All right, so next questions, we got Jessica, and then we'll do Patrick. So go ahead, and Jessica, I've go ahead and unmuted you, I think.
Hi, I actually have kind of a question, kind of a suggestion. So for our recruitment this semester, we're going to try and use Discord as a way to connect with people because Discord has the typing platform as well as the voice channels. So it's kind of like an easier way to make those more casual connections and have a place for prospective members to ask questions. So if anyone's done it before and has suggestions for me, I'd appreciate it. But also if it's something that any other chapter hasn't thought of, that would be maybe a good idea.
Jessica, thank you for sharing that. The other thing that I don't know if a lot of you use this, but if you want to try to keep your attendees engaged, is to use polling.
There's polling on Zoom as well. So if you set it up ahead of time, you can do some polling. You can set up breakout rooms on Zoom where it automatically splits people up into different rooms based on however many people you want it to be. So if you want to do groups of 5, and then really challenge them like, hey, in these breakout rooms, you're going to have a conversation about this. Come back with your best answer. So make the most of it.
Mm-hmm. But like you mentioned, that is a good idea to consider that we don't necessarily know everybody's different environments. So almost everybody in this call has their videos off right now. Not many people have posted in the chat. They may not feel comfortable. So providing options for people to ask questions verbally, providing options for them to type directly, providing those different options will make sure that you're accommodating all of your different pledges and members. All right, and we'll go ahead and move on. Patrick, you are next. So you might be unmuted.
I think I am. So I just wanted to kind of throw some ideas, suggestions out there. So we've talked a lot about leveraging tools like Zoom or Google Hangouts or Discord as means for handling this kind of virtual recruitment. But one thing that I think we've kind of glossed over, and it's important to note, is the actual logistics of making that happen. Because with the COVID pandemic and everything, a lot of these video services companies have increased the free caps and things for use without actually subscribing in payment. There are still some limitations that might be a hindrance to some student organizations. I know that Zoom, the free profile only lets you have a call up to 40 minutes, but they don't enforce that the first few times, but they do start to enforce it eventually. Or things like Google Hangouts only lets you have 25 people on a voice call, or Discord only lets you have 10 people on a voice channel if you're doing video at the same time. So different limitations like that you want to keep in mind. However, one suggestion that I would definitely throw out there, especially if your chapter is a larger one, is reach out to your faculty. A lot of universities do have enterprise subscriptions to things like Microsoft Teams or even Zoom. The University of Toledo, I found this out, uses both Teams and Zoom, and they pay a boatload of money to both of those, even though they do the same thing. So, higher education budgets make sense. But just something to keep in mind is that maybe your faculty members, or even, they don't necessarily have to be brothers of AK Psi as faculty members, but even just a professor might be able to help you set up a large enterprise license call so that if you have, more than 40 brothers that need to be on a call, or you need to have a call that's more than just 40 minutes. I think I mixed the 40 up there, but you get what I mean. You try to leverage those networking resources to maybe get away from having to actually pay the somewhat large costs. I mean, for the Zoom basic tier, it's $15 per host per month, and it requires you to have up to 9 hosts. So it can start to get expensive over time. So just things to maybe save some money there.
That's go ahead, Andrew.
That's really a valid point. Thanks, Patrick, for sharing that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Check and see what your university has already. If worst comes to worst, we're not going to do every single chapter meeting that you have, but if you need support on the Zoom front, feel free to reach out to your regional director, and we can see what we can try and set up for you and help you with.
That was going to be my follow-up and ask if the area VPs would be willing to help with that, because I know they have licenses, but not a lot.
Yes, we are definitely willing to do that, Patrick. We are. The other thing that we're willing to do, and Jake Kohler just added that in the chat room, is that, one of the luxuries about Zoom is that we can hop on, any meeting if you invite us, and we can say a few words. You can invite the president of the fraternity, and Thomas would be glad to participate. Jackie is always open to do that. Your regional directors are, your alumni. We're here because we want to be here. And if you allow us, now we have the opportunity. I'm in New Jersey. Jake is in Ohio. Mackenzie is in Indiana. So we're all around the U.S. We're all around the world. But the nice part is now with the luxury of technology, we can be anywhere. And we don't have to worry about incurring any travel costs.
Mm-hmm.
And the one point too, how Patrick said, there are the different options. When it's released, the virtual operations guide does have a list of, I think, maybe 10 different virtual options that you guys can connect with. And there's some compare and contrast things that will give you just a general idea of what's possible. And as Andrea and Patrick said, we do have the AK Psi accounts available that you guys can use. The one downside is you would not be able to use breakout rooms as a feature. So just keep that in mind if you are planning to use one of our accounts. You would need to work with your CERC to set that up.
So it is 9/11. I don't want to just hold everyone here hostage. But if you have anything else, I'd be happy to answer these questions. Andrea, Mackenzie, any of us would be happy to answer. But I do want to say thank you. Thank you for investing in your chapter. Thank you for taking the decision, and it's not a light decision, to influence your chapter and become an officer. You are the future of the fraternity, and I appreciate you. Heather asked, yes, these sessions will be available afterwards. These are being recorded, so hopefully I didn't mess up anything. But yes, if you need to refer back at any time, these sessions will be available.
Good job. Thank you all for being here this evening.
Can I give one more huge round of applause? Thank you, Mackenzie, because we really appreciate you and everything that you do on the staff side. Thank you, Andrea. I really appreciate having you help me through this as well, and providing your wealth of knowledge. And thank you again, all of you. Have a great night, and go AK Psi. Woo!
Woo! Good night.